Okay, in this video I'm going to go over how to create a very basic Express app that uses Postgres and then deploy it to Heroku and have it work on there. The reason I'm using Postgres is it is free without using a credit card on Heroku. So um, let's see. So if you want to grab this URL, all the instructions in here are basically going to be what I'm going over in the video. So if you'd rather just read that, that's fine. Okay, so let's get to it. So I have this folder here, and I'll create the app here and deploy it to Heroku. So I'm going to make it with VS Code, so the easiest way to do that, open VS Code to this folder is just to right click and click on open with code. If you don't have that option, you might want to reinstall VS Code and add that option. There might be another way to add it as well without reinstalling, I'm not sure. But there's a couple other ways to open VS Code to this folder. A couple easy ones are open a command line, so you could type cmd here and enter, and it'll open a command line here, and then you can type code dot. Dot stands for the current directory. That'll do it. I like to use PowerShell, if you shift right click, you can open PowerShell to this folder and do the same thing, but I'm not going to do that again. Git bash, I believe, is an option as well, so whatever you prefer. But anyways, so I have VS Code open, and so there's a couple ways to make a app that works with Heroku. You can basically make the create the app on Heroku first, and then connect it to your local files, or you can create it with locally with the command line and then just push it up, and then it'll be on Heroku. Either way, it doesn't matter. Um, I'm gonna do it from the command line. I think it's just a little bit easier. But to connect it, you need to use the command line anyways. So, and if your home screen on Heroku looks a little bit different, you might have a welcome message here. I dismissed that. You can still get to the same options. It's fine. There's create new app and then create a team if that's something you want to do. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I'm going to create. There's a couple things. So if I were to create a package JSON file right now with npm init-y, okay, it's called Heroku. It's fine. And now I were to create a server file, server. Then I would have to do another step manually. So I'll show you that step in a second. But yeah, I would create the server first and then the package JSON second, so it does this extra step for you. But it's not a big deal. You can do it yourself. And what that step is it adds a start script for that, and then it's ready to go to run on Heroku. So you need this part as well. Okay, so I need a couple dependencies. Now that I have the package JSON, npm will automatically save them in. You used to have to use the -- save when you install things, but now it's just automatic. So I need Express, so you can type express or install Express, either way. So we need that. We'll do npm, we'll do it with install this time. So we'll use MySQL package, just because we're going to do a basic MySQL Express app that works locally first, and then we'll convert it to Postgres, and then deploy it to Heroku. Okay, so we have that, and let's see. So the first thing we want to do is if I use var, excuse me, it's a kind of a bad habit right now because I've been using it a lot lately for teaching. But anyways, so we have const express, so require express, okay, and then we have const MySQL equals require MySQL, okay, and now we want to do const app equals express, call that function, and then we want to const connection equals MySQL dot create connection, and this is just one of a few packages on npm that you could use to connect to MySQL databases and run queries. Okay, so let's see, MySQL create connection takes an object. I usually like to put this configuration object separately, but it's fine. We'll just use it as is. Host, local host, user, or actually port, 3306, default, and whoops, what else? User, root, just no security here, I'm just using root, it's fine. And then my password, I just made it slightly different than root. I just added a letter that was next to T, so it's Rudy. And then database we're going to be using is, I'm going to call it testing1. Okay. So we have that, and then we want connection.connect. And so have a callback. I'm not going to worry about error handling right now, but this will take an error. But I'm not going to deal with that right now. So when it connects, let's console log connected to DB. Okay, and we're not using express at all now, so let's get that going. Whoops, var. Okay, so app.use, do that a couple of those, and first thing we want to use is, let's see, express.json, and we want express dot URL, what was it again? URL encoded function takes a object, and sometimes if you forget like some of the properties, you can hit control space and the autocomplete will give you an idea. So we want extended true. Okay, and then app use express dot static, and this again autocomplete's telling you what this is. It's the root directory where it's serving your static files. We'll just call it public. Okay, let's make that public folder public. Okay, and what else? Let's go ahead and add a simple HTML file in there. Index.html. Okay, HTML, use the template, and do Heroku Express MySQL. It's really going to be Postgres at the end of the day, but that's fine. And then test index. Okay, just some content so we can see it that's loading without thinking about it too much. Alright, so now we have that set up, the middleware set up, so let's do app.listen. Oops, listen. and then add a port, which we'll define in a second. And then we'll do the, connected, console.log, app, or listening at port, port. Okay, let's define that port. So this will be const port equals, so when you deploy to Heroku, you want the port that's on the environment variable, or in the environment. So we're going to use process.env.port, and then locally we're going to test it at port 8080. It's fine, doesn't matter. Okay. So let's see. So right now it's connecting and then it's listening. Maybe we want to put this inside here, but that's fine. We'll keep it separate right now. It doesn't really matter. I'm not doing this to make the perfect app here. I'm just making the most basic thing, and then just so we can test. Okay, so what do we do now? So let's do npm. We can use npm start because that's set up for us now. It'll just run node server.js. So let's try it out. Okay, connected to DB. And let's see if this is working. 8080. Test index seems to be serving that. The title's there. It's all good. Okay. Now let's see if it can talk to the DB. So let's do connection.query, and then we'll do select all columns from, actually everything, all columns and rows from table name. I think we're calling it testing1. And then, in fact, let's even throw that in there like so. And so these two question marks will be replaced with this. And then, and the difference between this, I'm sorry, double question marks and single question marks is this would be like a name of a column, or the name of a in this case a table. And so, and I think the schema will be named testing1, but let's name the table test1 for something different. So that's, and then basically these, when you use two question marks, the end resulting query string will have backticks around this instead of quotes. So that's the difference. Okay, so, and just to show that, let's store this in a variable. Whoa. Okay. And then the callback with the error and the results. And let's just go ahead and log the result for now. To make sure it's working. Okay. And again, I'm not going to handle errors right now. Not concerned with that. Okay, so problem right now is probably that this table doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and create that table. First, I want to create the schema, and you can use database instead of schema, but I'll use schema. Test1, and let's make sure that we're using. Excuse me. Let's. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, testing1. All right, created, and now we're gonna use it. Use testing1. Okay, run that. Control Enter to run, by the way. And if you select multiple lines and want to run them, Control Shift Enter will do that. Okay, so let's create table test1. Super simple. It's going to have a ID that's an integer. You can use int or integer. Either one's fine. And then it's going to be an auto increment and not null. And we're just going to have a name, varchar 255. And this will also be not null. And then we just want the primary key to be the ID. Okay, looks good. Okay, and let's insert some seed data in there. So let's go insert into test1, and then name and values. Whoops, values. So if you ever do, or if you like typing like that, I think most people like uppercasing the keywords. So one way to do that is you can just highlight all your code. You might even not need to highlight it, and go to edit, format, and uppercase keywords. And yeah, you don't need to highlight, it just does it for the whole file if you don't highlight. Maybe it does it for what you highlight otherwise, I'm not sure. If you do beautify, there's some options. It's supposed to work properly with that as well, but doesn't seem to work for me too well. But anyways, you notice too, there's a shortcut for commenting, uncommenting, that toggle button. Notice how it's Control Divide. So at least for me on Windows, if I try to comment some things and I hit Control / it's not going to do anything. Which is the same button as the question mark, or same key as the question mark. I have to hit the one on the numpad to get that to work. So I don't really know if there's anything that can be done about that, but I'm not going to get into it. Okay, so it's a habit to always save the files. Okay, so and that just reminded me, after this video I'll make a video about using SQLize as well, which is super easy because it's really easy to switch your dialect from MySQL to Postgres with that. Super easy. So, but anyways, insert into test name values. This will be I'll use my name, Matt. Okay. And then let's look at the data. Test1. And it's working. Okay, cool. So let's test it on here. And the reason I am setting up MySQL first is to show how to convert it, which is really easy. Okay, so let's go node server. Can do npm start as well. Okay, and it seems to work. It does the query and it gets the data back. All right. And also I wanted to show the what this does. And so let's console log the result, and we'll also console.log query.sql just to see what the resulting query looks like. And yeah, it has the backticks around it, similar to like a template string or something. Okay. All right. So, and yeah, you can do that actually in here. That'll work for those types of things. So let's see. Got that all running. Now what we want to do is we can't quite deploy it to Heroku because, again, we don't have MySQL set up. So, and again, I kind of want a way to display this data, because right now we're just console logging it. So let's set up a route that does this, basically. Okay, so we can get rid of this. We can really get rid of this as well. So set up a route, app.get, and we'll just have it be the root. And function request response. Maybe a good idea to actually type those out completely. It's not a big deal. Okay, res.send testing. Let's make sure that's working properly. Didn't forget anything weird. And this is actually not going to work because we still have it serving the static, so let's get rid of that temporarily. Stop, restart the server. Testing. Okay, and there are packages out there that will allow you to restart the server automatically when you make a change, but I'm not going to be using one of those for this video. Okay, so let's bring this back in, and instead of res send, let's do res JSON, and we'll do result, and that result will come from this. We don't need this anymore. Grab this and bring it down in here. Okay. And let's throw this in here so that, again, I'm just doing this for demo purposes. This is not how you should design your app. I'm just doing it quickly. Yeah, so we want to make sure it connects to DB, and then it'll connect to this in case there's a problem. Okay, so let's see here. After it gets the result, we just want to give it out in JSON form, and let's try that out. So now, oops, let's get rid of this for now. Restart it and check out that. Cool, seems to be working. All right. And what else do we need to do here? It looks fine to me. So, I kind of want it to display in here on the page itself. So let's quickly write a script. Oops. And when everything loads, it will do a fetch to the root, and then the response, again, not doing error handling, just getting the response and putting it somewhere, response. And let's make an element. We can put it in div, didn't need to do that. We'll call it ID output, it's fine. And document, get, use query selector as well, but we'll just use that, and output, and dot text content, and we'll make that equal to the response. I think that'll work, maybe. Okay, let's try it. Oh yeah, we need to bring back in the static. I believe this will work now. just to make sure it's test. Let's try that. Okay. Oops, restart the server. Oh, right. Okay, so we want to take this response, and it's like an object, and we want to use is it response.json, I think. Return. We might need to use response.text. Okay, and then so this return value will then be passed into the next promise, basically. Function. So then we can just do the same thing. Okay, so the problem is, yeah, there's some route issues. So we're gonna make this an API / all, whatever. Okay, and we're gonna make this yeah, so it's getting the web page because of that, and then I'm trying to do all this stuff to it. Okay, so let's change this back to JSON. Okay, response, and then instead of this, we want API all. Okay. There we go. So that's cool, and then I believe text is what we want, so that it'll show on the page. Okay, cool. And that test is showing that it is coming from there. And plus it's a different route altogether now. So let's get rid of that test. We don't need that. And it should still be working fine. And it does. Okay. So now what we need is, so that seems to be working. It's getting stuff from the database. But again, this won't work on Heroku. So what we want to do is first let's deploy yeah, I'm not going to try to deploy this to Heroku because it won't work. But what I will do is let's make an app. So there's a few ways to do it. Again, you can create a new app here. My new app. Sure, that's already taken. My new app 100. Okay, so you can do this. Create a new app, and then it gives you instructions if this is the route you want to go to do it. So you want to make sure you log in, and if you're already logged in under a different account, you can do Heroku log out and then log back in. And initialize a Git repository. So we're going to end up doing that as well. So we're going to do these two steps anyways. But then once that's done, this is a way Heroku has a nice way to just link it up to your repository as a remote repository. It does all that stuff for you. You can run that command, and then once that's done, you can do the normal way to deploy the application, which we'll use as well. And again, if you already have a repository, you would just run this first. Okay. So the way we're going to do it is we're first going to make this a Git repository with Git init. Okay, so now this is a Git repository. A few things we want to do is we want to create a Git Ignore. That's very important. So .git ignore, and we want to ignore node modules. Okay, we want to ignore and see how it's built. Git VS Code has Git Git stuff built into into it, so it'll show you like these files have been updated, and then as soon as we save that git ignore, it shows you that it's being ignored by graying out. So node modules, and then what else? I think just that. I'm also not gonna send up my git ignore to Heroku, so I'll also git ignore that, but that doesn't really matter that much. No problem if you don't include this, but you definitely don't want to include your node modules. Okay, so let's see. And by the way, you don't need to include them because Heroku will look at your dependencies in the package.json and install them when it's setting up your app to run anyway. So that's all set, and then the way we're going to create the Heroku app is go to use Heroku. Heroku create, I believe, is the command. So it just created our app, and what I should have done is git remote -v. So if I would have done this command before Heroku create, you would see nothing here because we don't have any remote set up. We don't have GitHub set up. We don't have Heroku set up. So that's cool. So that create command sets that up for us, just like this command would as well. Okay. And now we want to make some changes and commit them and push them to Heroku, and that's how you deploy to Heroku. It's just like pushing to GitHub. Okay. So we've already made a bunch of changes. So one thing I want to note too is if you do like git status, I also don't care to send package lock.json, and that's hidden by the way because of a setting I have in VS Code, but that is there, so I'm also going to add that to the git ignore, but really not important. Okay, so it's just going to send these files here, pretty basic, and what I want to do is do a git. We want to do a git add the current directory and all subdirectories, which would be public, would be included in that. That's what the dot means. It does the current directory as well as all subdirectories. If you wanted to do all the directories in your entire project from anywhere, you do -a. I believe -- all might do the same thing. I'm not sure. And that would do all the directories. It's the exact same as using the dot if you are in the root directory of your project. Okay, so we want to do that, but let's say we didn't do that and we tried to do git commit am. Git commit am first. I don't care about the message too much. Okay, so let's do, and I always do this locally because I have a couple of accounts that I use and I don't want to configure Git for the same email on every single repository. User on email, we use test at test.com, doesn't really matter. Git config user.name, that doesn't matter as well. Okay, so we try to do this, right? It doesn't do anything. And the reason is right here. So the A, and by the way, I was doing git commit -am. And what that should do is tell Git command to automatically stage files that have been modified and deleted. But new files you have not told Git about are not affected. So these files are not tracked, so they won't be added. Alright? Or they won't be automatically committed. The changes won't be automatically committed. So we do have to run git add. Okay, and now if we do git commit, we can do m since they're already there, or am, it doesn't matter. We'll just do am. Okay, and then git push, and then we want to do the name of the remote repository, which would be Heroku master, which is the branch. And that's how you deploy to Heroku, is specifying the master branch. Okay. So that deployed to Heroku. It's not, there's going to be issues. It's not really going to work because MySQL is not set up. We could try it, but it might have a problem. So we can control click on this to open it. And yeah, there's some issues, and it got a response, and it basically, it didn't give us anything because that database doesn't exist. Okay, so another thing you could do is Heroku logs if you're having trouble. Now to Postgres. So close this local version. So what you're gonna want to do is first of all, you want to provision. So this gives you some like command line ways to do it, but we're gonna do it through the interface. It's a little bit easier, I think. So the first thing you want to do is install Postgres. If you don't have it installed, you can click on that link up there, local setup, and then Windows setup, Mac setup, Linux setup. I've already done that, and again on Windows, it won't, at least the way I set it up, it wasn't automatically added to the path. So I'm gonna go over this really quick so that it works. And Mac and Linux are a little bit different, but you can read the instructions for those. One other thing I wanted to point out about this was basically the different ways that you can provision the Postgres to work. So it does say in here you can check if it's already provisioned by doing Heroku add-ons. See your add-ons for this app. So we don't have any add-ons. Okay, so I do have Postgres installed, and I want to add it to my environment variable, just like this says to do here in local setup, Windows setup. So easiest way to do that is in the search, you can type env, and then it should have this, and you can just click on that, and you're going to want to add it to the path as it says here, under the user variables. So path edit, and you want to go to wherever it is on your machine. So I'm going to find it on my machine. It is in C. You click new and paste that in there. Okay, done. Hit OK, and now any new terminal that you start up will have that. One way you can test is to just type this command psql and see if it works. psql. It's not recognized. Okay. You might think that you can just kill the terminal and then restart it. Control backtick is one way to do that. And psql doesn't work. So I found maybe there's another way to do it, but I have to restart VS Code to have it work in that integrated terminal. So I'll do that. Open the code. And now it works. It's asking for my password. I'm just going to give it something wrong. That's fine. That's for my local database that I have set up. So now that we have that set up, what we want to do, and the reason you need that, I'll show you why you need that in a minute. And basically it connects it's a way of connecting to the remote database through the local PSQL program, basically, that comes with Postgres. Okay, so now to provision the Postgres on our app. And again, if you want to do it through the command line, you can follow these instructions here. I prefer not to. So I'm going to go to Heroku.com. There's a few ways to do it. I'll just show a dashboard, which is one way of creating it. And you can go to data.heroku.com. And this is one way to do it. So you can create, install. I'll just show a few different ways to do it. You can choose which one you like the best in the future. And then you search for your app. What is our app called? I forgot. Heroku add-ons. Immense Cove, okay. And then you can click provision. That's one way to do it. And we'll come back to this data after I make it as well. Another way to get there is to go to your app and then go to resources, add-ons, and while we're here, I'll show you the problem with MySQL. There's a couple options here. If I try to do this, it won't let me because it wants your credit card. Same thing with JAWS, I believe. And this is the free version. It will work for free if you use your credit card, but again, you don't need it because we're using Postgres, which works without a credit card. But you could also add Postgres here. Free provision. So I'll do it now. Okay, so once you provision it, it's been installed, and you can check that with this. Oh right, I added it to the wrong app. So let me go to my apps, resources, and there are no add-ons for this app, so I want to do Postgres. Okay, provision. Alright, now I should have it, and I do. Cool. Okay, so now this provision, I can use it, or I can run commands with it on it. So the way to do that is there's a couple ways to do it, but the easiest way is to Heroku. You might see in the instructions it says PG, PSQL. That is one way. It's having a hard time connecting. Wonder why that took so long. Not really sure. But I'm going to quit out, and you do that with /q. Okay, but you don't really need that PG. You just need PSQL. It'll do the exact same thing. And again, if you didn't add Postgres bin folder to your path, that won't work because that is using your local PSQL program to connect to the remote database. Okay, so now this is the remote database. And what we want to do is look at the tables we might have. So a command to do that, and by the way, if you type help, it'll give you some help on things like /q I just did to quit. But one thing we might want to do is see our tables. So one way to do that is /dt, and that says no relations found because we don't have any relations or tables in this database, or in this in our database here. So one thing we can do is just type SQL commands here, and they'll run. So let's try that. create table test1, I believe is what we want to call it. And if we enter, that'll be the next line. In Postgres, to make an auto increment field, we do serial instead of auto increment. Next line, name varchar 255, and we'll say this is not null. And we want the primary key to be ID. Okay, and then we'll end that statement and run it. And now we can do view the table. Okay, cool. We could do excuse me, select all from test1. Should give us back nothing because we don't have anything in there. We can insert some data here, but you can imagine this might be kind of annoying to work with, so you might want to be able to write your query somewhere else and then run them easily. So one way to do that is what I'm going to show you. And again, you can't, as far as I know, go back to the previous command. Maybe there's a way to do it, but up and down arrows don't work to do that. So, and there probably is a way to do that. I just don't know how. So I'm going to quit out, and I'm going to make a seeds file. Seeds. And I'll also make a schema file. So we'll do create table test1, same name, same thing we just did. Again, ID is going to be I forgot to do int serial. Actually, no, we don't want int serial. We'll just give it the type auto increment, or the type integer, and it'll work. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Actually, let me test something. Describe test1. Okay, describe is not Postgres. Thought that might work. Anyways, ID serial, and then what else do we want? We want name var char 255, and this will be not null. Okay, and then primary key will be ID, and then we'll end the statement. Okay. And then we'll do seeds. So insert into test1 name and values, and then we'll use that. We'll insert a couple more. Mark, John, and then we'll end the statement. Okay, so instead of having to type this all out, I can just run the file similar to like source file name in MySQL. So how you do that is going to back in here. Well, first of all, I'm going to redeploy it with these new files so that they'll be on the server. I can probably, let me see, I can probably do Heroku run bash and create them that way. I'm actually not sure if that will be saved per instance, so let's try that out. Touch test.text. And then let's try let's try see if that test will be there after deploy. I'm not sure if it will or not. Okay, so git add, because I'm adding these files, and again, they're untracked right now, so I will need to do git add status. So we need to do git add, and then git commit add scale files. I don't really care too much about the messages. This is just a demonstration. Then git push Heroku master. Okay, not git, Heroku run bash. I just want to see if it blew away that that text file that we created, or if it stays on there. Yeah, it gets rid of it. So that's only per that instance. Okay, cool. But now that we have these files on our okay, looks good. Now that we have these files, and again, and you can't run PSQL as far as I know from here, by the way. It has some error. Maybe there's a way to do it, giving it some options, but I'm not aware of how to do that. So let's see. So I want to exit and then get out of that. I guess you just need to wait for that for a second. There's a delay. So now I want to run these files without having to, you know, so I can run this code without having to type it manually. So into the PSQL interface. So let's select from test1. So that table is there, and let's drop table test1. Get rid of that table and select test1 again. Okay, doesn't exist. Alright, so the files, now to use the files, I believe it's I. Is it I forget, actually. I think it's I. Let's try it. So you would do /I and then the name of the file, schema. So yeah, it's /I and then the name of the file to run. So now if we do select from test1, yeah, okay. And then we have nothing in there, so I want to do again /I and seeds, and it's starting from your root application directory. Column mat doesn't exist. Okay. Yeah, and we need single quotes here. Postgres needs single quotes. Okay. So what we want to do now is git add, or actually now we just modified it so we can do and then we can do fix SQL and git push. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Okay, so git, that's not going to be there. Git commit fix SQL, git push Heroku master. Okay. Heroku PSQL. Try that again. /i seeds. Cool. And now from test1. And there they are. Cool. So now we actually want to use this database. So how do we connect to it from our app? So some very simple changes in this case, since it's a very simple app. So we can look at connecting in Node. So we want to install Postgres, first of all, as a dependency. So let's do that, or PG. The PG package, and then we want to get out of this first. And okay. And let's make sure it's in there. Looks good. Okay. And we want to include it here. So I'm just going to copy this. It's fine. Okay. And okay, cool. So we have this, we're requiring it, and I believe this is just object destructuring, not like how you have an import statement. So there's some object being passed that has a property client, and we're grabbing that. So this is how I create it, and it will already be set up here with this database URL to connect to the Heroku instance database, Postgres database. So this will work out of the box. You don't need to get the information to connect to it manually. If you do want that information, you can go to your app and click on this. I don't remember exactly where that was, but there is a way to connect to it manually. But I'll throw that in at the end of the video. Okay, so this will work, and that's fine. And then we have client now. We can get rid of this connection. It's the same thing. We can get rid of this because we're doing basically the same thing up here. Same idea. Actually, let's bring this back in. So let's call this client. I believe this will work just the same. I believe it has a callback as well, even though they're not showing it here. And then client query will be inside. So you'll have to look at the API documentation, but to see how they do this. But for now, I'm just going to manually put this in here, so it kind of matches up. So you shouldn't have to make too many changes. And it's even easier if you use an ORM, because you literally just change the dialect to Postgres, and it will just work. And again, I'll make a video about that. Okay. So client query looks good. Cool. I think this should work with no changes, no other changes. So let's try it out. If not, we'll figure it out. Looks good. We're not even using MySQL anymore. Okay. So git add. Actually, we could do a commit am since there's no new files, just modified files. And we'll do use Postgres. git push Heroku master. Okay, let's see if it works. I'm not sure if it will. Cool, it works. So the result here, right here, comes back a little bit different. It's just there's some more stuff to it. If we wanted something similar, we could just get result.rows. It'd be similar, but you can see we have Matt, Mark, and John here as we added to the database. So it is correctly accessing the database. If we go to data now, and we go to, we have 2 data stores, 1 for each. This is the one we're working with. You can see it has 3 rows. Yeah, I guess you get 10,000. Cool. So that's how that works. Again, oh, here's the settings. You can get to connect to it manually. So you'd click on database credentials. I'm not going to show those because they're it has some sensitive information, but yeah. So you get there from here, which is data.heroku.com, and then you click on the database, and then you click on the settings tab. There might be another way to see that, but that's one way. Alright, so that seems to be working, and before I forget, I want to show one other quick thing while I'm thinking about it. So it's kind of unrelated, but if you do like using PowerShell, and you can actually use it from the command line, and if you just type PowerShell, it switches this to a PowerShell, so then we can use commands like ls from in here instead of the PowerShell interface. It's basically the same thing. So if you don't like that blue color, you don't feel like trying to change it or anything like that, and you just want to quickly use this, that's one way to do that. Alright, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.